Your daily dose of sports talk is here. Highlights, interviews, and analysis. From the entertainment capital of the world, SportsWrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does, and good to have you with us on this Tuesday edition of the show. We got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Just Sam and I today, holding things down. And a ton to get to. Big news from the NBA. As a team that was starting to make a move out in the West loses a huge piece of the puzzle. The Seahawks will be without a key piece of their offensive puzzle as well. All of that plus a goalie fight that you have to see to believe, but we start things as we always do on this Tuesday edition of the show with the big story. And the big story is what Indiana has accomplished. 16-0. Think about that for a moment. The last time it happened in college football was 1894. And we'll get to that coming up in a couple of minutes as well. But Indiana, look, I wanted to see what was going to happen when this team got pushed. If this team could get pushed. Because it happened so infrequently this year. What, the game against Penn State? Game against Ohio State? That was about it. They weren't pushed often this year. So it's hard to find out what a team is unless you get them in a situation where their backs are up against the wall. And last night, it really felt like their backs were up against the wall. Miami pushed them to the limit. You had Chris Fowler on TV with ESPN telling you that Miami was being dominated in the second quarter of a game that was 10-0, like midway through the second quarter. And I'm going, is he watching the same game I am? Because yes, Miami was having its struggles offensively in the first half. But defensively, sans a couple of penalties here and there, they were holding Indiana in check. And when you allow a team to hang around, they go into the half down 10-0. And you're thinking, oh my God, the sky is falling if you're Chris Fowler from Miami. If I'm Mario Cristobal, I'm watching this, I'm saying, we're right there, guys. And they came out in the second half with a purpose. And they pushed Indiana to the limit. You had Curt Cignetti making decisions that even he himself in the postgame said he wasn't all that sure of. The decision to go for it on fourth down where Fernando Mendoza makes, what a lot of people would probably say is the play that defines this season for Indiana football. There it is. Him rushing up the middle, putting his body on the line. It was like John Elway in that Super Bowl where he threw himself in the air and got whacked and went like a whirly bird into the end zone. But even then, Miami still had answers. I thought that touchdown to make it 24-14 was the game. And Miami responded. And they kept responding. After the blocked punt, they responded. Every time Indiana threw a haymaker and landed it, Miami came back with one of their own. And Indiana, at the end of the day, made one more play. Now, I know you could say they made multiple more plays because of the blocked punt, the missed field goal, special teams troubles for Miami. But at the end of the day, it was one Carson Beck throw. It essentially decided if he throws that ball over the safety's head instead of throwing it short, that could be a touchdown, that play. People who have watched it have said that play was drawn up to be a touchdown throw. That could have ended the game. And there it is. And the story of Carson Beck's career. 6 losses in his college football career, by the way. Decided on the last play. Or essentially an interception. Remarkable. And his collegiate career comes to an end. He'll head to the NFL next year. Probably be a day 2 pick. But Fernando Mendoza, hats off to him. Hats off to Curt Cignetti. And I don't think this is a one-and-done deal for Indiana. They will be reckoned with in that Big Ten, in the college football playoff for years to come. I know they have the 3rd best odds right now. If you're Curt Cignetti, that's the greatest thing you can see, is that you're sitting behind Ohio State and Notre Dame when it comes to national championship odds next year. You've already got your motivation going into next year. You've already got bulletin board material for your players going into next season if you're Curt Cignetti. And you know what? Maybe Miami football is back, maybe it isn't. You're only as good as the next quarterback you get. And Miami's going to have to go through that process next season, and we'll see what they are. But as far as the odds makers are concerned right now, where's Miami? Coming off of that loss last night. When you look at the odds for next season, you got to scroll way down to find Miami. So we'll see where the Hurricanes are next year. They're 19-1, by the way, next season to win a national championship. One last thing here on this big story. And it's about this team. You may not know who this team is, but the one good thing of many, one of the good things to come out of this win for Indiana and going 16-0, is it has forced the football world to acknowledge there was one other 16-0 team in the history of college football. And you know who they were? The Yale Bulldogs. 1894, the Yale Bulldogs went undefeated 16-0. Coached by William Rhodes. And here's the amazing thing. The aggregate score for that Yale team that year. You want to talk about dominant. They had 485 points. Their opponents had 13. Think about that for a moment. You want to talk about the most dominant team in the history of sports? I know the game was played differently. It was a different time. But the Yale Bulldogs, who played against the Harvards and the Princetons and the Browns and the Armies and Dartmouth and Lehigh, 16-0 that season in 1894. And one of the good things that did come out of this 16-0 run for Indiana was the fact that people had to acknowledge that really one of the fathers of football, Yale University, was the last team to go 16-0. So there you go. Look at that group of strapping young men. We will do more on this college football national championship game, the Natty. Sam Yarnell will be here. What's he make of Indiana's 16-0 season, and what happens to Miami next? Welcome back to the show. You've heard what I had to say in the big story. Sam Yarnell is here, as I said at the top of the show today. Just the two of us hanging out today. I say just the two of us. Chuck Todd wants to come on from NBC's Meet the Press, current host of the Chuck Toddcast, because he was at the game last night, and he's a super Miami fan, Miami super fan. So I don't know, we might slip him in. We'll see. Sam Yarnell, talk to me. Give me your thoughts. What we saw last night. It was not what I think we all expected to see. Of course, if you tailed me on the plus 7.5, which I was not very confident in. Congratulations. But Sam, Miami put up a hell of a fight, but give Indiana credit. They made one more play.
Yeah, well, certainly they did make at least one more play, Jason, and it was truly spectacular to witness this Indiana team and their dominance over Miami last night. You know, at the end of the day, what it feels like this game came down to is, something we talked about with Bill Bender over more than just our preview of the game over the weeks leading into this game, and it was the quarterback play, right? And Fernando Mendoza, the stat line doesn't stick out any more than any other game this season, but if you watched the game, you saw he made the plays that mattered, obviously rushing in the touchdown on the 4th and 4 to give them the lead. And quite frankly, on the other side, it was, unfortunately for Miami fans and a Miami football program, a story that they've seen in every single one of their 3 losses this year, right? You go back to the SMU game that Miami lost. Carson Beck threw an interception in overtime. You go back to the Louisville game that Miami lost. Carson Beck throws an interception to end the game. You go to the national championship game. They have the ball with a chance to march down and score. The offense is moving, and Carson Beck throws an interception to end the game. So, Jason, yes, credit to Indiana. This is a football team, the likes of which we have not seen in a few years in the college football space. But at the end of the day, Carson Beck had the ball in his hands with a chance to go down and win the game, and he didn't make the play that mattered.
Well, and on those things, you never know if somebody zigged when they were supposed to zag. We never really know. But clearly, they did have an opportunity there. And, it'll be interesting to see how Miami bounces back from this next year. Everybody's just assuming now the U is back. Well, depends on who their quarterback is next year and how far the U goes. Because obviously they have a lot of other pieces. And defensively, they kept Indiana in check for most of this game. Couple of bad penalties. This is a Miami team that was penalized a lot throughout the season. You get them penalized in this game. You get the blocked punt. You get the missed field goal. We could talk about Carson Beck because it's the last thing we see. It's the lasting image and the way the game ends. But it's as much about the blocked punt. You can't have it. They shouldn't have even been downing the ball down there. They shouldn't have even had the ball in that position the way they did. And then the missed 50-yarder, which changes the complexion of the game. If that goes through, it's 10-3 at the half. Who knows? Maybe they're trying to kick a field goal at the end of the game rather than score a touchdown. I'm curious as to what your overall take now is on Mendoza as we look forward. Look, Indiana's going to be, let's just get this out of the way. Indiana's going to be, this is not a flash in the pan. Indiana's going to be good for a while. This Indiana program is not just going to, go 16-0 this year and next year, lose 2 or 3 games and go back to being the old Indiana or go back to being bad. Those days are done. Okay, and what Curt Cignetti has put in place here now, we have to buy in with what he's done at this point. Taking a bunch of guys that a lot of people didn't want and turning them into a 16-0 team, which, by the way, we haven't seen since 1894, as I mentioned in the big story. Kudos to Yale. So what do you think of Mendoza? Because here's what I'm thinking about. This kid's you cannot have the sort of season he's had. You go 16-0, you win the Heisman. You are the darling of college football. You're talking to Tim Tebow about winning and what it takes to win in a championship game, right? Now you're going to be going potentially to the Las Vegas Raiders. And I say this as somebody who hosts a show that is based in Las Vegas and wants the Raiders to be good. It's the Raiders. And this kid's going to have to go from this to that next year as a 22-year-old and try to figure out how to navigate through the morass that is the Las Vegas Raiders. And I know Tom Brady is a minority owner and he's part of the franchise and all of that. But that thing has been dysfunctional for so long. And we've seen, the Raiders try with Jamarcus Russell and all the different guys they've tried to bring in, and nothing's worked. Why is it going to work with him?
Yeah, so just one thing real quick on the Indiana thing, because I think there is a prevailing notion, a prevailing belief across college football that, okay, well, Indiana made it. Now they're here to stay, and this team is going to be exactly the same thing we see next year. And while I'm not saying that is certainly not the case, I'm just saying that that is not as simple as it was this year for this Indiana team. You have a ton of talent leaving this team, especially on the offensive side of the ball for Indiana. It is going to be a challenge, one that Curt Cignetti is very built to handle, but a challenge nonetheless to attack the transfer portal again the way this Indiana team has in years past. And Jason, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be the third favorite, which is what they currently are to win next year's national championship. But I'm just saying the sports books are showing you very early on that they have a lot of confidence in what this team can do in the transfer portal, be it warranted or not. On Mendoza, listen, I am sold down the river on this kid. I think that Fernando Mendoza is going to be a great quarterback in the National Football League for a plethora of reasons. Not only has he shown you over the last 2 years, really, not only with this year at Indiana. Last year, people forget how prolific that Cal offense was with him and Jaden Ott, right? So I think that he's shown you he has the physical tools, the football aspect of it all to be able to be successful in the NFL. But what he has more so than, gosh, a lot of quarterback prospects that I can at least remember is the ability to handle just about any situation. And I'm not talking about on the football field. You can ask the kid any sort of question in any sort of press conference, and he handles it with the utmost professionalism. It seems like he is not one that can be rattled the way that we've seen young quarterbacks coming out of college who have had copious amounts of success at the NCAA level have in the very recent past. So I am very confident in Mendoza. Talking about a team like the Las Vegas Raiders, he to me is the ideal guy to bring in a new coach, bring in a new system, have Tom Brady, one of the greatest to ever do it, mentor him personally. I think it's going to work out great for the Raiders with Mendoza.
Well, I hope it does for his sake, because we've seen the football graveyard is littered with a lot of guys who have tried to fix the Raiders and been the guy that was going to fix the Raiders. We'll see if he winds up being any different. We got more to get to from the NFL. We'll do it next. From our SportsWrap studios in Las Vegas, we roll on this Tuesday. Sam Yarnell and myself going through the top stories. And boy, last night was insane with the amount of news that broke. I mean, yesterday. The coaching news, the Jimmy Butler story, which we'll get to coming up a little later on as well. I want to start with Robert Saleh, Sam Yarnell, because here's the thing to me on Saleh to the Titans. And I put this up on social media last night. This makes no sense to me. And let alone from the Titans side, where they go get a defensive coordinator to go and coach a young upstart quarterback in Cam Ward. We saw what happened, by the way, with Robert Saleh the last time he had a high draft pick and a guy at quarterback. How'd that work out, Zach Wilson? So we've already seen this story before. You go and get Robert Saleh. But here, from the Robert Saleh perspective, here's what I don't understand, Sam. And if you can explain this to me like I'm a 4-year-old, all the power to you. You've already gone up in flames with the Jets. Now, maybe some people will give you the pass and just say, that's the Jets. But now you're going to go and coach the Tennessee Titans, which have been a dumpster fire in their own right since Mike Vrabel left the organization. So now you've got Robert Saleh. You've got probably one shot left to be a head coach in this league. Because if you blow this one, you're probably not getting a third try. There aren't many Dick Durans in the world. Rest in peace, Dick Duran. You go and take that job? That's the one you're taking. You got a cushy gig. You're not getting run out of San Francisco anytime soon. They love you there as the defensive coordinator. You could wait till the next cycle or a better opportunity. You're taking the Titans job? Make it make sense to me.
Well, I don't know if there will ever be another coaching cycle where there are this many head coach openings.
There will be openings, though.
Sure, but this many, this much of a pick of the litter, as Robert Saleh, as you alluded to, a guy who has been a very highly regarded head coaching candidate. I think, what you said about the Jets is very true, right? And it's kind of true to the Daboll thing, and it's why he continues to get these head coaching interviews. It's because people look at what happened with Saleh and the Jets or Daboll and the Giants, and there are very clear external factors that are weighing in on their head coaching decisions and hindering them, and obviously their performance as the head coach. It's, I think you can tell based on the entire Harbaugh debacle, as well as how long it took Aaron Glenn to sign, as well as how many coaches these two teams have run through in the last, 10 years alone, to be able to tell that New York is not exactly the most sought-after coaching destination. About the Titans, though, you said it. Last time they were a team that built themselves up to success from an ownership perspective, who was the guy that they went out and got? It was Mike Vrabel, a defensive-minded guy who brought in an offensive-minded guy and let the offense be their own unit while handling the defense, right? That is, I think, what their imagination is for Robert Saleh here. The confusing thing to me is, I guess their list of candidates, it was so clearly Robert Saleh when the two guys they were interviewing for this job were Robert Saleh and Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy, who had a blow-up head coaching job in the NFL, has actually nothing to hang his hat on in terms of being a coordinator, and just led a Super Bowl winning offense to miss the playoffs year over year. So the Robert Saleh hire, to me, was the only one that the Titans were actually considering. I don't think Matt Nagy was ever actually going to get that job. And Jason, it just seems to me like ownership is going with what they deem as familiarity. They want the young defensive-minded guy like they're comfortable with having had in the past.
All right, I wanted you to make it make sense to me. You still didn't. I'm an idiot. So I'll go with the fact that I think it's bad for both sides. And this will be Robert Saleh's last head coaching gig in the NFL. But hey, lots of defensive coordinator opportunities out there for him when this goes up in flames as well. So let's talk about Hafley to the Dolphins, because now apparently the Dolphins have decided to create Green Bay South, with John Eric Sullivan being the GM and Hafley becoming the head coach of the team. All right. I mean, I guess that's a choice. I guess that was one way to go.
Yeah, I mean, another confusing move from another franchise that seemed to have only made confusing moves ever since the Mike McDaniel hire. Like the Mike McDaniel hire was the last sensible move this front office made. Yeah, I'm comfortable saying that. The Jeff Hafley thing doesn't make a lot of sense. I understand his name. Actually, I don't think his name was very highly touted within league circles from everything I've been able to tell. And you think about Jeff Hafley's career, this is a guy who, gosh, and I know this is going back a ways. I don't know how much NFL front offices are considering this, but you have to remember what happened with him at Boston College. It certainly was not good. Statistically, I believe he's the worst head coach that Boston College has ever had, and they let Bill O'Brien clean up his mess. So yeah, very confusing to me on the Hafley hire. Like you said, it does reek of them just having the Green Bay guy in the front office and getting the Green Bay guy for the head coaching position.
We didn't talk much about it. As a matter of fact, I don't think we talked about it at all yesterday. It was the Stefanski hire in Atlanta with the Falcons. We didn't touch on that yesterday on the show because it happened over the weekend, but it was a busy weekend. But Stefanski to the Falcons, I like that hire. See, that's one I like.
I am shocked and appalled by the Falcons fan base's reaction to this hire.
Yeah,
this is,
short-sighted, though,
in my opinion, one of, I think probably the three best hires that we'll see this coaching cycle.
I agree.
Kevin Stefanski is one of two active head coaches who has won Coach of the Year multiple times. I believe it's two, it may be three. Regardless, he's a guy who's shown you that he can build an offense out of essentially nothing, and now you're giving him the weapons of Bijan Robinson, Drake London. Like, I am very happy with what Atlanta is doing, and I am dumbfounded by their fan base's displeasure with this hiring. Jason, I loved this hiring for Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm with you on it. I think it's exactly what that team needed to get an offensive mastermind in there like Stefanski with the pieces they have, because they have the pieces, obviously, to be successful in Atlanta, and he'll get an opportunity. And I mean, you got to, but think about this: you go from being on a team where back-to-back last place finishes, and you upgrade to the Atlanta Falcons. That's pretty hard to imagine if you think about it. To flame out of Cleveland and literally go right into your next job being that Atlanta team with Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts showing signs this year. Obviously, they got to get the QB situation figured out, but we'll see how they handle that in the offseason. We're back with more Sports Wrap. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Good to have you with us on this Tuesday edition of Sports Wrap. We'll go to the NBA coming up in 10 minutes. The ship has officially hit the iceberg for the Golden State Warriors. And the Knicks appear headed for their own iceberg right now. Eesh. Ay. Getting booed out of the Garden last night. Rightfully so. an MLK Day performance to forget for the Knicks. All right, Sam Yarnell, let's talk a bit about the NFL some more and get into this Zach Charbonnet injury and what it means here for the Seattle Seahawks as they get ready to take on the LA Rams this weekend. Charbonnet lost to a torn ACL. And look, I mean, this is a huge injury. You're talking about, one of the biggest offensive producers for this team and some of the sort of cushioning that you give to a guy like Sam Darnold. Give me your thoughts here as we get ready to go into this game. The Seahawks -2.5, by the way, as we head into the Sunday NFC title game between the Rams and Seahawks. I don't know what the line was before. I think it was 2.5. I don't think the line's moved based on this, Sam. Does that surprise you a bit?
No. I would be I would be very surprised if the line did move. And listen, I know that it feels like this is part of the propensity we have as, people who cover the NFL to, just because we're going into championship weekend, massively overstate an injury. Like, this is their backup running back. I'm sorry. It is. This is a guy who had like 40, 50 less carries than Kenneth Walker over the course of the season. They've been relying I think he's only got one rush this entire playoffs. Well, granted, that is a smaller number because they had the bye. Right. But still, to me, it feels like, this is a move where the Seahawks are going to have to rely like very slightly more on Kenneth Walker. But I'll put it to you like this. I don't think that their offensive install changed at all from what they had planned to do before the Charbonnet injury to what they're planning to do after the Charbonnet injury. To me, it just feels like they're going to put a little more weight on Kenneth Walker's shoulders. And quite frankly, he's a running back who's built to kind of deal with that. So I'm not concerned about the injury at all. It is unfortunate for a young running back in this league to go through something like this, but I don't think it'll really affect the Seahawks' chances in the NFC Championship game.
47.5, by the way, the total on that Rams-Seahawks game coming up on Sunday, the late game of Championship Sunday between those two teams. I love the Rams. Because I think you're going to get a close game between those two teams, and I will trust Matthew Stafford in that close game before I trust Sam Darnold. It's interesting. Somebody, and I don't know who it was. I can't think of the person who said it. When I say the quote, maybe you'll know it. There was somebody out there who postulated that Matthew Stafford needs another Super Bowl to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. I don't know who said it, but it was somebody prominent in the media that Stafford needs another Super Bowl in order to be a Hall of Famer. And I wonder. I mean, look, there's going to be that opinion out there.
There certainly will. There will be, but I'd be very confused at it. Just off the top of my head, Matthew Stafford. Yeah, Matthew Stafford's going in the Hall of Fame. He's a guy who's going to throw for 65,000 yards by the time it's all done. He's going to throw for 430 touchdowns. He played with Calvin Johnson. He's got a ring. He's got a comeback player of the year to his name. He's got a first-team All-Pro. He will have had an MVP at that point. Yeah, I just don't see that guy getting left out. If a quarterback, I'll put it to you like this. If a quarterback like Jim Kelly is in the Hall of Fame, a quarterback like Matthew Stafford is going to get into the Hall of Fame.
Is Joe Flacco a Hall of Famer?
Probably, based on longevity, right? You could probably build the case. When he left Baltimore, when he got, supplanted by Lamar Jackson, there was probably a case to be made that he wasn't. But you'd have to think in the subsequent playoff runs with even with Cleveland, right? In the subsequent run to the playoffs with Cleveland, I think that he's pushed himself over the edge at this point.
Yeah, I wonder if Flacco winds up being a Hall of Famer.
With so few quarterbacks winning Super Bowls in the last 20 years, You'd have to imagine that winning a Super Bowl, once we're looking at this 10 years from now in a different era of the NFL, winning a Super Bowl as a quarterback will hold more weight than it has historically, but even more so because of the era.
The Jarrett Stidham-led Denver Broncos plus 5.5 on Tuesday morning. The line according to FanDuel right now. The Denver Broncos plus 5.5. The total 41.5. And by the way, I'm done trying to figure out totals when it comes to a Patriots game because I thought them and the Texans was going to go way the hell under. It went way the hell over when all was said and done. What's your take on sort of the midweek line on that game?
Makes no sense. Makes zero sense in the world. Why on earth? You do the spread math on this, right? And then it makes even less sense. So the Patriots at home were just 3.5-point favorites against CJ Stroud. The Buffalo Bills, who the Broncos were favored over, with Bo Nix, granted, were 1.5-point favorites on the road in New England 4 weeks ago. The math just is simply not mathing here. You're going to tell me that the Jared Stidham to Bo Nix drop-off is now, with it being 5.5 and based on what the spread should be with a healthy Bo Nix theoretically, you're going to tell me that's a 9-point difference? No shot. I don't believe it for a second.
All right.
I will take the Broncos, but I'll wait for it because that number's climbing. And Jason, if I can get a 7 with the Broncos, I'll be happy as a clam.
We're coming back with some NBA talk. Knicks and Warriors next. Odds and Ends wraps it up 10 minutes from now. But first, some NBA talk. Tuesday NBA run and gun here on the show. Kurt Heelan, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com on the show on Wednesdays. Be curious to see what develops between now and then, especially when it comes to these stories, Sam Yarnell. Jimmy Butler, torn ACL, suffered last night in a Warriors win over the Miami Heat. And just when the Warriors were starting to play better and starting to make a move there in the West, they suffer this terrible injury for Jimmy Butler. And I don't know where they go. I don't know. All of a sudden, Jonathan Kuminga looks really good on that bench, huh? Steve Kerr better be running over giving flowers to Jonathan Kuminga because I don't know where they're going to get the production to replace what Butler brings to that team, Sam.
Yeah, so right as the Golden State Warriors looked to be trending up and like they were making a comeback, everything fell apart, and the franchise is headed towards basketball purgatory if they don't do something quick.
They're already in it.
This is, Jason, what, I've talked about on the show for, unfortunately, years at this point.
3 years.
This is what happens when you refuse to blow it up in Golden State. You try to hang around, you try to cling to relevance, and then by the end of it all, you're running out a very old starting five, one of whom blows out his knee, and the guy who you want to replace him, well, you've already fractured the relationship with that kid so much that he just requested a trade 2 freaking days ago. This is what a meltdown looks like from a basketball franchise's perspective. And I'm not saying that this is like a historic fall off or this is one of the fastest fall offs you've ever seen. There's an argument to be made. It's one of the slowest fall offs we've ever seen. But the fact of the matter is, this is the culmination of them keeping Steph Curry for as long as they have, waiting as long as they did to let Klay Thompson walk, keeping Draymond Green on that roster for as long as they have. This is what happens. And now this is a Golden State team that is probably going to end up a lottery team, Jason Page, because do you really have any hope for this team to do anything without Jimmy Butler?
I don't know how you repair what's been done here with Kuminga, where you basically
he's gone. He already requested a trade.
I don't know how they fix that. And this is the problem when you exile somebody to the end of the bench the way they have, and now you lose Jimmy Butler. You have to try. They're going to try because I don't know what other option they have. I don't know what deal there is to be made for the Warriors to try and fix this. And they keep trying to do this patchwork repair on this thing with duct tape and electrical tape and holding it all together. And we see the end result of this. I've been screaming about this for 3 years on this show and the radio show we hosted before this show came along. Rest in peace, Cashin. I don't understand what the direction of this organization is at this point. And It's going to be a fascinating watch as we head into the trade deadline to see what they try to do, because they've gone all in every year. I don't know where they go, Sam.
But unfortunately, right? Unfortunately, from an us perspective, for everybody but the Golden State Warriors, they still have this weird window because it's this year. Yeah. If they sell everything right now, tank the rest of the season, end up with a half-decent lottery pick, you're looking at a franchise-altering season because of how good this draft class is. They are such a lucky organization that this is all happening when it is, and the draft class that's about to come in is as talented as it is.
Who's the consensus number one pick for college? It's not Boozer, is it?
There's not one right now. That's the whole thing. There are three guys who could all go number one between Cam Boozer, AJ Dybon, that doesn't even count in Koa Pete, who's also going to work his way into the top 5 by season's end. This draft class in the NBA is loaded.
From the Warriors to the Knicks, who are a disaster under their own right now. I think they've lost like 9 of 11 or 10 of 12 now after they get pistol whipped at the Garden last night on Martin Luther King Day, the annual Martin Luther King Day game at Madison Square Garden, which was played in the evening this time. And even the Mavericks minus Anthony Davis go into the Garden and absolutely mollywop the Knicks. I mean, they were getting booed off the court at halftime. And there are a lot of people screaming for Mike Brown's head right now, saying, boy, we miss the days of Tom Thibodeau, which, by the way, I don't think was necessarily the answer to win this team a championship. But the Knicks look uninspired right now, Sam. And I don't know what the answer is. Maybe it is just this middle of the season, the dog days of the NBA season. That's what Curt Heelan will tell us tomorrow on the show, that some teams go through this in the middle of the year. They come out rejuvenated after the All-Star break. I don't know what it is right now, but it's not clicking for the Knicks, Sam.
It's starting to feel a lot like they're going to trade Karl Anthony Towns.
It has to be.
It's starting to feel like that is going to be. Yep. But here's the thing, Jason. To me, and this is where I'll opine on it, it also feels like this hypothetical trade that's been drawn up of somehow Karl Anthony Towns for Anthony Davis, and you figure it out with the salaries and you make it work. It feels like the Knicks aren't that trade away from being back to what they need to be, quite frankly, to compete in an Eastern Conference that we've been talking about as wide open for the last gosh darn month. Yeah. So the Knicks they're reaching a boiling point, man. They're going to have to make some very interesting decisions over the course of the next week. That's about all they got left.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting watch, and there's still a lot of people just kind of hanging out, waiting to see what's going on with Giannis and whether or not Giannis is going to be moved. Nobody really knows, and I think that's holding up a lot of the trade activity potentially leading into the deadline. Is a lot of people are still uncertain as to what the Bucks are going to do with Giannis, and I don't think they know yet. So I think this thing's going to work its way down to the wire. They're going to see what kind of deals or offers are made. You still got John Morant out there as well. Please don't go and get him, Knicks. But a lot of possibilities out there. We'll wrap it up with odds and ends next. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Tuesday. Don't forget, Wednesday's show includes Curt Heelan, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com, talking all things hoops. See if we're any closer to a resolution on Giannis. John Morant, by the way, who I mentioned in the last segment, says he don't want to trade. He says he's in it to win it with the Grizz. See how that works out. So we'll see what Curt has to say on the show tomorrow. A couple of reminders before we go. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. Available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. It is the audio version of this show, Monday through Friday, 45 minutes. It is fantastic, I can promise you. In addition to that, we have the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel, which if you have not gone to this yet, go subscribe today. We've got all the best content from Sports Wrap with Jason Page there for you. The complete Monday through Friday version of Sports Wrap is right there on the YouTube channel, and it's there before it's anywhere else. Monday through Friday, go and subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel, where you will also find Sports Wrap Shorts, These are 1 to 3 minute long videos, usually closer to a minute though, on the top stories of the day. When news breaks and we're not here to bring it to you on television, we're on the YouTube channel, Sports Wrap with Jason Page. The Sports Wrap shorts are available there. They're also available on our TikTok, Sports Wrap Jason Page, and on our Instagram, you guessed it, Sports Wrap Jason Page. And without any further delay on this Tuesday, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. We had a goalie fight in the NHL, and everybody knows how much of a fan of fighting I am in the NHL. I am the first one to come on here and say it is awful, it is terrible, the sport should get rid of it. Did you see? Now I'm going to go way off script. Did you see the fight at the minor league hockey game with the
it rocked.
Oh my God.
It was awesome.
Terrible.
It was sick.
Awful.
It was awesome.
See the terrible example
great.
we are setting.
It was everything that is right with hockey in the world and sport.
These little kids beating the crap out of each other. Some goalie came in, looked like
none of them got hurt.
The goalie looked like Bane coming in and taking out a player. Speaking of goalies, we had a goalie fight in the NHL last night, Sam. Sergei Bobrovsky, Alex Nedeljkovic. Got it. Nedeljkovic. There it is. Damn it. I got it right on the Sports Wrap short last night, and that's what counts. Those two going at it last night. We had a hockey fight, something we don't get very often in the NHL, Sam Yarnell. What do they even do when goalies get into a fight? Does somebody else serve the penalty? Because the goalies don't serve the penalty, right?
Yeah. You can have someone else serve the penalty. This was awesome. It is so many things to take away from this, right? Boy. Hockey is good when the Sharks are good, and the Sharks are good again. Macklin Celebrini's lighting the world on fire. Yeah. Alex Nedeljkovic is doing stuff like that to Sergei Bobrovsky, who's one of the most established tendies in the National Hockey League. So the Sharks are all the way back, and that is something that is good for hockey. Another thing that is good for hockey is the all the way back Sharks having this newfound rivalry with the Florida Panthers. This rocks. This is awesome. Hockey is doing so well right now, and it is so fun to see teams with this young talent, these young upstart teams that have been so deep in the basement for the last couple of years. The Sharks, the Sabres, doing so well in the National Hockey League right now. It's awesome to see. The goalie fight was a lot of fun. And shout out to Alex Nedeljkovic, man. Took on Sergei Bobrovsky, and I'm going to give it to him. I'm going to give it to him 10-8. Maybe not 10-8. We'll go 10-9 Nedeljkovic on this one.
All right. Fine. Have it your way. Keep all your fighting in the game. Crazy hockey friends. Let's talk about Alberto Mendoza. He is the younger brother of Fernando Mendoza, who we talked about earlier in the show and waxed poetic about. Alberto Mendoza, for those of you that may not follow college football, is the backup quarterback in Indiana. Now, next year, a TCU transfer is coming over to Indiana named Josh Hoover. There was conventional wisdom that he could be the starting quarterback next year. Now Alberto Mendoza is entering the transfer portal. Will Indiana be able to keep him, Sam Yarnell?
I don't know. This is something that the college football message boards, I'm sure, will go crazy on for the next week and a half, that the college football that the NCAA transfer portal is open. Yeah, maybe. I would like to think that the emotion of winning a national championship at Indiana and his brother quarterbacking them not only to a Heisman, but their first national championship would make him want to stay and try to follow in that legacy. But Jason, this is the unfortunate part about college football in the modern age.
Georgia Tech, Duke, Stanford, all still looking for quarterbacks. So, and hey, Duke won the ACC this year. I mean, there are worse places you could land if somebody offers him a starting job next year and enough money, and he gets to be the Mendoza at that school, which is obviously going to bring about some attention for whatever said program he goes to, Sam. He's gonna score next year. He better go thank his brother, because he's gonna score in this portal this year just by blood.
Yeah, certainly, but I'd be surprised if it was in Indiana. It just feels as wholesome as that family is, I don't think they're leaving Hoosier land.
Josh Hoover, 31-game starter for TCU, threw for more than 9,600 yards while he was there. That's gonna wrap it up for us. This Tuesday edition of Sports Wrap is in the books. Thanks to all of you at home for watching. Thanks to you, Sam. We'll see you all back here on a hump day edition of the show. Hey, Gael Monfils, nice career at the Australian Open. Played his last match there. We'll see you.